Hey, welcome to Mikey's Video Game Madness. Today we're playing the crew Wild Run. This is really just the crew that we're playing. Wild Run was the expansion pack that came with it, but the disc that I got had a download key, but it didn't really download anything, so I think part of the update put all the run stuff in it, and then whatever was extra with the run, you had access to it. Kind of like with Mortal Kombat XL, where they had like tournaments and stuff, or somebody else bought the DLC characters. You could still see the DLC characters, so it was already downloaded into your system. You were basically just buying an unlock code, because I had the plain Jane Mortal Kombat XL. I mean, the Mortal Kombat X, and after they downloaded a patch, it was Mortal Kombat XL, even though I had the plain Jane version. But with the online towers and stuff, sometimes you could play the downloadable characters you didn't pay for. So I think it's that same kind of deal where it's called Wild Run no matter what, but we're not playing the Wild Run portion of this on the video. Basically what the Wild Run stuff is like monster trucks, drag racing, more online stuff that you can do. Like they have these tournaments that you play with other people online. It's all optional stuff, but the drag racing and the monster truck obstacle course and the sand buggy stuff is actually pretty fun. I'm not flip-flopping when it comes to this game. When I first played the beta of this game and then the demo, I was quite disappointed with it. Already I was kind of annoyed that it was an online only game. Now I don't have anything against online only games. If it's a game that appeals to me and it's online only, I'll still get it. Like if they came out with a Star Wars first person shooter that mostly had online only modes on it and barely any single player, I would probably get it. And I did, because that's Star Wars Battlefront. That was a really bad attempt at a joke. But yeah, it's annoying when it's online only, especially a game like this. Like you can tell that if they really wanted it to be offline, they could have made it offline, because there's more to do offline than online. As far as I've seen in this game, from what I've played of it, it's a real shame, because it's one of my favorite racing games that I think I've played in quite some time. My favorite racing game of all time, as you probably have heard me talk about on other videos if you're a regular viewer, is Ridge Racer Type 4 or R4. It's one of the few racing games I really feel like I mastered, although if I played it today, I'd probably suck. I probably sucked when I did the video, but it's one of the few racers I like. I really liked Forza 4, even though I didn't have the full version. I had like the Essentials version. Yes, and the Gran Turismo games are okay, but I tend not to like the simulation games. And I really like Need for Speed, the newer Hot Pursuit, and I liked Rivals. Most Wanted was cool when you didn't have the claustrophobic cities, but anyway, I'm getting off task here. The reason why I decided to eventually get this game and give it another shot is that I watched the late game reviewer. I'm sorry, I don't know your actual name. I've heard it before, but you even refer to yourself as the late game reviewer if you happen to be watching this. And I saw his what do you call it, live stream or whatever. He does them every so often. He did a live stream, and it was actually pretty entertaining, and it was actually this game, and I was quite surprised because the game looked and controlled a lot different than what I remember. And then I did some research. When they came out with this Wild Run update, they actually redid the car physics and the graphics and everything, because the graphics, even though the graphics here aren't mind-blowing by any stretch, they're a lot better than they were. But when I first played the beta, these cars controlled like boats in water, and I know what I'm talking about because I've actually piloted or sailed, although you don't use a sail, or driven boats in water, so I know what it's like. There was like a real lag in your turns. Ironically, the physics are kind of different in this game. Like I've never driven a Camaro before, but I would imagine a heavier car like the Camaro wouldn't control as well as or tightly as a sports car, even though it does in this game, but it's whatever. The Camaro is the best handling car that I've played so far. As you level up, of course, here I'm in the garage because I had a stock car which was kind of sucky. I'm getting the one that I modified, and each time you level up you get like more parts for your car and stuff like that. That's a cool little graphical effect right there. And the non-stock cars, you can put nitro and stuff in it, which is a must for me. But anyway, one of my favorite Need for Speed games, which is one of the Need for Speed games a lot of people don't like, is Need for Speed The Run, which had this cannonball run cross country thing that I really liked, and this game just takes it to the next level, and you can pretty much go across a simulated United States. Like, unfortunately they don't really separate everything to 50 states. I kind of wish they did and maybe had like a landmark for each state, and it's cool in this game there are actual landmarks that you can visit, which is pretty neat. But I went from Chicago to the Florida Keys, and it actually looked really cool, and you see the architecture. It really captures the feeling of that general region. Like Detroit looks like, I've never been to Detroit, but the photographs. But I have been to the Florida Keys, and I drove down to the Florida Keys from Detroit, and I just liked how subtle it was. Like, and it's like not taking the highway, but the scenic route where you see all the trailers and the farms and stuff like that, and then you'll hit a town, and it really captures the feeling of going on a long trip, and I really liked that. And I liked when you were going towards Florida, every once in a while you start seeing palm trees pepper in between the regular forest, and all of a sudden it was like full on palm trees, and it's just really cool, and it just captured the feeling of what I remember of actually driving to Florida. Of course, in a very short amount of time, they're not going to be able to fit the whole United States on one disc. I imagine all this stuff is on disc. Maybe that's why it's online, maybe it's streaming all this stuff, but I think it's all on disc. But yeah, from what I've seen, assuming that this is on disc, if they ever cut the servers off, they could, from what I've seen, maybe, I'm not a programmer, but I think that they could make a patch to make this an offline game. Like, as far as turning off all the online modes, you could probably play at least the story mode single player. Or they should be able to make it where you could just drive around, because it's just fun to drive around. That's what I really like about this. Because I'm not a huge racing fan, and the cars are somewhat still a little bit unwieldy, but they're enough where I feel like I have a decent amount of control. Once I find the nuances of it, it controls completely different than what it used to. It feels like a completely different game than the beta did. I really didn't like the beta at all. I didn't ever plan on playing this game again, which really disappointed me because I thought it was such a great idea. So when I watched the late game reviewer's live stream that he had, I think it was around 2 hours long, you probably can look it up on his channel or whatever. He played it for quite some time. I just noticed how different it was and how nicer it looked like it controlled, and it really does. I only have experience mostly with the Camaro. Some of your missions you get a specialized car with drag racing and the monster truck. Sometimes you'll have like a challenge where you try to drive on a certain street like really fast and try to create like the highest average speed, and they'll give you some weird specialty cars. I'm not a motorhead, so I don't know I hope that's not a derogatory term. I don't want to offend anybody. But anyway, I don't know cars all that well. I just like driving games as long as they're fun. I'm not a huge driving game fan, but if there's fun to be had, I'm all about it. Now, I don't know if I'm not leveled up enough, but the cops seem way overpowered for the types of car that they're driving versus the kind of car that I'm driving. But I think I'm still low leveled because it suggested that I had a car level of 17, which I don't have. But luckily, from me playing Grand Theft Auto more than probably one should, I kind of knew how to fudge the system in any other sandbox game. But if you can get over this being an online only game and be able to enjoy it while the servers are still up, I really hope that they put a patch where you can play this offline. I seriously doubt they would. I wouldn't hold my breath on it. But this game is super cheap. It's not a full price game. I think companies are starting to realize that maybe you can't always charge full price for an online only game because people don't feel like they're getting a full game all the time, because I noticed some of these online only games are dropping in price really fast, and it'd be a shame if all this work got flushed down the toilet. But it's just like a good arcade, or like your favorite arcade machine back in the day or whatever. I didn't really grow up during the arcade renaissance, but I grew up where I used to go to an arcade and there'd be my favorite arcade machine, and I'd enjoy the time that I had with it, but it wouldn't be there forever. Like, there was a 7-Eleven near my house, and they had the Aliens arcade machine. I thought it was the greatest thing. Even when I didn't have a quarter, it would have this creepy voice that went, "Aliens," even though that never happened in the movie. Like, half of the aliens in that game weren't in the movie. But it was a cool arcade machine, and then they switched it with some shoot 'em up or whatever, and I never saw the arcade game again, but I still have fond memories of it. And this isn't like the best game I've ever played, or is it my favorite racing game, but it's one of my favorite contemporary racing games from what I've played so far, and it has nothing to do with the racing mechanics, so I'm probably not the right person to judge what a good racing game is. But the controls are alright. They fixed the physics on it where I feel like I actually have control of the car before, even though I'm crashing, because, you know, Camaro is a heavier car or whatever, and it's a hybrid of realistic slash arcade physics, I think. I don't know. I've never driven a Camaro before, especially a new Camaro. If I ever had a chance to drive a Camaro, it'd probably be a fucking old rusty one. Nobody'd let me drive their Camaro. But anyway, yeah, it controls a lot better than it was on the beta. Like, you would turn and it took forever for your car to respond. Here, it's like you can drift pretty well, and as long as you know how to transition the brakes and the gas pretty well, you can control pretty hard. I mean, you can control well. Another thing in this game is I'm giving tips is pretty weird, but I'm used to moving the analog stick a lot more than that's required in this game. Like, with this game, I guess since it probably expects you to use a steering wheel, like, you barely have to touch the analog stick to turn, and that was a mistake I was making in the beginning. I was like pushing the analog stick all the way to the left or right, and it would like spin my car out of control and make it crash, because this is one of those games where it sort of falls on the realistic side, where if you turn the steering wheel too hard at like a high speed or whatever, your car is gonna go out of control and you're inevitably going to crash. So it's just something to keep in mind for somebody who doesn't play racing games. Like, you barely want to touch the analog stick with this control. The driving is somewhat like Watch Dogs, and maybe that's why I'm a little bit more well versed now, because I didn't finish Watch Dogs when I first played the beta, but like I said, the physics are different, so it's not really a fair comparison. But yeah, Watch Dogs was somewhat like that, where it wasn't totally realistic physics, but you barely touched the analog stick. Like, even like with some of the simulation games like Gran Turismo, you have to turn the analog stick more. This, you like barely nudge it. I sound like I'm rambling because I'm talking about a racing game, and I don't usually cover racing games, but this has to be the best Cannonball Run racing game that I've ever played. And if you can get over the online only aspect and enjoy it while it's out and have fond memories like I'm trying to do, and get it at a cheap price like I did, like, I think it's fair to not want to pay full price for an online only game, and you can get this game super cheap. I would definitely recommend it, as long as you know at some point they're probably going to pull the plug and they're probably not going to patch it. But if you can get over that, there's a lot of fun to be had, and if you played it back in the day and you own it, pick it up and play it now. They changed a lot of stuff, especially the way the game controls. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and take care. I hope you're all doing well.
If you want to, like, comment, and subscribe! Thanks for watching!